Welcome to Floyd Street's Finest. He is former Louisville assistant Mark Lieberman. I am Jack Grossman. Field of 68, Floyd Street's Finest, powered by the Field of 68 Podcast Network. Technically correct there, but also,
Yes.
yeah, which is, it's the best kind of correct. You can follow Coach on Twitter at Coach Lieberman. I'm at Jack Grossman97. Like, subscribe, do all that stuff. And also, Coach has the hat on. Got a couple new presenters, but Title Boxing, where Coach Lieberman gets fit, where I should probably get fit when I'm back in Louisville.
You're coming with me, Jack. The next time you're in town, I'm dragging you out to Title Boxing. You're gonna have a blast. It's a great place.
That would be really good for me. I would probably make an embarrassment of myself in a boxing class. But
you're gonna do great. You stick with me. You're fine. Okay. The good part about Title Boxing, they're not hitting you back. So you don't have to worry about it. You're getting in great shape. Your technique is good, but Mike Tyson's not swinging back at you. So that's the best part.
Usually helpful.
Yes.
Yeah. No Tyson, no Ali, no Holyfield, and we're good. But your first class is free. Title Boxing, located 849 South Hurstbourne Parkway, 502-630-0600 is the number there. Also, you've probably seen it on the graphic, Kentucky Proud t-shirts, Louisville stuff, Kentucky stuff. If there's any BBN people listening out there, Kentucky Derby merch, all that stuff as well. Shout out Phil Baker, our friend of the pod there, helping us out with that one as well. So Kentucky Proud Style Boxing, really appreciate both of those guys. And we have a lot to talk about since the last time we have chatted, Coach. First of all, congratulations on your Pittsburgh Steelers. And I'm sure that angered a good chunk of Louisville fans that love Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, but what was going through your head when that field goal went wide right on Sunday night?
Well, listen, and when Boswell missed the extra point, and then it's just it's one of those things. I would say this: if I'm a coach and I have Derrick Henry and I have Lamar Jackson and I have 15 seconds and a timeout, I'm trying to get 10 more yards at least, or maybe go for a touchdown. I'm not leaving it to a rookie kicker. That's just I'm glad they did. And we saw vintage Aaron Rodgers, and it's amazing because the week before, it just seemed like he was the most exasperated, most just apoplectic and moody quarterback you've ever seen. And then just Sunday night under the lights, and the Fire Mike Tomlin chants have seemed to be waning.
It turned into Fire John Harbaugh.
And that's it.
And I'll say this before we get to Louisville Duke, obviously. It was a phenomenal play call from the Ravens on the Zay Flowers touchdown. Mm-hmm. But knowing the track record that Baltimore's had the last 6, 7, 8 years under Harbaugh and that defense, for whatever reason, I was like, 2 minutes and 20 seconds for Aaron Rodgers against that defense? I don't know about that one, Jim. Tony Romo would say.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And when Kyle Hamilton went down, I think that was it. Like, he's the field general. You lose a Kyle Hamilton. He did everything. He called the defense. He was everywhere. He played linebacker, safety, up on the line of scrimmage. So, yeah, that was big for us as well.
Yeah, and Steelers go on the playoffs. I know you'll be watching intently this weekend. It's Texans.
Monday night, Texans.
Yeah, there we go. That'll be a fun one.
Yeah, it should be a blast. Absolutely.
Be an absolute blast. Well, anyways, we're here to talk about Louisville basketball here again. Floyd Street's Finest, powered by the Field 68 Podcast Network. Coach, lots happened since the last time we talked. As I mentioned up top, Louisville gets a quad one win at Cal, stumbles at Stanford, so they go 1-1 on the West Coast swing. But let's be honest, we're here to talk about the Cardinals and Duke from Tuesday night. And we were talking about before we hit the record button here on the podcast. To me, and this isn't going to be a popular opinion among Louisville fans who have been visibly very angry coming out of the combination of the Stanford game and the Duke game. But it said a lot more about Duke than it did Louisville for me. I'm going to be completely honest, because Louisville won playing without Mikel Brown again. And we saw, whereas the Tennessee game, I thought, Woolley and Conwell both played really good games. It wasn't really, yes, Mikel Brown obviously would have helped him in that game, but I still thought you got good production from the guards there. The last couple games, it's been okay. You didn't get much. Conwell had a terrible shooting night at Stanford. Woolley didn't play well at Stanford. Conwell, Duke was really in that second half really laser focused, taking him out of the game, and Louisville didn't have enough offensive firepower around them without Mikel Brown. But to me, it comes down to what I just said. In the first half, I thought Duke, to be completely honest, was incredibly passive and at times lazy on the defensive end. Once they ramped up that pressure, once they put Sarr on Conwell and really
Mm-hmm.
took him out of the game,
Yep.
which again you wouldn't be able to do if you had Mikel Brown on the court as well. That to me flipped everything, and Duke's defensive pressure changed the game, and Louisville didn't have an answer for it.
It was basically, I spoke to some people at halftime. It reminded me of the Kentucky game. You're a drop coverage on handoffs. You're sagging off. You're allowing the guards of Louisville to dictate and dominate the flow. And no matter what, look, you have wide open jump shots for the bigs too, and obviously Khalifa is not going to go 4 for 4 on many nights. But like when you're playing that far off a guy, because you're deciding you're so worried about back cuts, you're living in your fears. And you said it. There's no pressure on the guards. Conwell's being able to just come up the floor. And all of a sudden in the second half, it just was like Duke just, hey, we are pressuring. We're not letting him catch. Every catch is contested. He's going to have to fight on every. Even when he was coming off a flare screen, I mean, they're bumping him and they're being physical with him. They're, just every cut he's being bumped, and the pressure was just ramped up. And coming off all their actions, yeah, the bigs were up. They trapped the ball screen late. It was just a situation where Duke's athleticism was just phenomenal in the second half, which is wondering what was the issue in the first half. I mean, the first possession was a zone, which,
Yeah.
You know what, I didn't have a big problem with. And of course, they get the ball. Hadley gets the ball to the middle. It opens up a three. But then they got away from that, and it just seemed like everything was just late and lazy by Duke in the first half. But to expect Louisville to Duke and John Shire's done a really good job. We all have seen that, and we've seen what he's done with this team. It's a different Duke defensive philosophy that under Coach K, Jack, because everything was denial, and really just almost worried about your guy. Where Duke has been a more helpful team and really being a collectively, erasing mistakes and doing those things and covering for each other, where that first half just didn't seem like a John Shire defensive unit, where the second half was a clinic.
It really was. And I mean, it looked incredibly easy for Louisville that first half, almost too easy to be completely honest. And yes, Louisville's running good offense and all the stuff that Duke was struggling with, Louisville, credit to them, took full advantage. But there just wasn't a counter to it when Duke ramped up the pressure. And that's where you miss Mikel Brown. And that's, I don't want to just keep going back to that. But the way Louisville built their team was all of this shooting around the perimeter and all these dudes that can stroke it. But it all came back to, if you take the 3-point shooting away, you have two guys in Brown and Conwell who can beat you off the dribble. Well, if Brown's hurt and Conwell is kind of that only guy, you could really focus and sell out on him. Because if you were to try to do that with Sarr on Brown, maybe he has some success. That's going to open up Conwell a lot more. And yeah, Woolley didn't have a great game. That's kind of the third dude you would have really liked to have seen. Kobe Rogers didn't really give you anything offensively, but I know some people were mad about that. And yes, that would have been a great punch to have. But he's the fourth guard off the bench, guys. I'm not fully expecting him to give you 12, 15 points in a game. Yes, 4 or 6 would be helpful, but he's not. That's not his role on this team.
He's a nice player. He's not a lottery pick.
Yeah,
and so for understanding, Conwell is hunting shots first, and it's not a knock on him at all. Like he's a scorer. He's hunting, and he'll pass sometimes out of necessity, and it's not always where he's going to make the extra. He might hold the ball for an extra second or two, but that's okay. The players understand that. When you have a Mikel Brown on the floor, well, now you know what? Now you see a McNeely become more of a mover and a guy who's coming off actions and can lift up and sprint to the corner, because you know what? Mikel's going to draw too. And how many times do we see those middle ball screens with Frew? And now all of a sudden, are you plugging? Are you tagging? And all of a sudden, McNeely lifts and there's a shot or one extra pass to a corner. It just creates more flow. It creates more spacing. It creates more open looks. And with this group, it's not that they're not a selfish. They're not a selfish team. It's just that they are who they are. And so those players, even with Woolley, he backed the guy down. He's trying to get to the rim. He's not thinking pass first. And probably the guy who's thinking pass first the most is McNeely, because he knows the more you give it up, you're going to get it back. But with this group, not from a selfish standpoint, it's just a feel of knowing where he is. And when you have Brown on the floor, Well, because he can navigate ball screens, he can draw two defenders. For great point guards, it's not always about the first guy. It's about, can you draw the second guy and create open shots? So people are like, why is McNeely struggling? Well, it's a lot different when you can just take him out of the play because other guys are just trying to drive and create. And so, yeah, it just disrupts what they're trying to do from the flow of the offense as well, because they're just relying on the zooms and then early actions. And then look, when Duke's scoring and they'll be able to get back and set. How many times was Shea Billis talking about in the first half? What terrible effort Duke in transition and just giving up. That's a lazy effort, late and lazy, not sprinting back and just layups and so on. Where the second half, we didn't see any. I think 26 points and 46-26 was the second half. And Louisville was lucky to score 26.
Yeah, and really, that's a great point, because I want to talk about the defense. We'll get to that, but I know complimentary football is always something that gets brought up when you're watching an NFL game or a big-time college game. It applies for Louisville as well, and people talk about, let's go back and forth with our guy Dave Skoll, Biggest Biscuit, on Twitter last night. He was like, well, you got to fight the pressure, all that stuff. You know what makes it easy for Duke to set that pressure up? Is when they're taking the ball out, when Louisville has to take the ball out of the basket after a made field goal or two free throws. And when Duke shoots 71% the second half and gets to the free throw line, they're in the bonus for the last 13 and a half minutes of the second half. That's going to slow the game down, take you out of transition, and let Duke set their defense up. And Duke is a much tougher team to defend or to score on.
Oh, yeah.
When they have their defense set.
And not only are they set, but it's also a mindset. Look, these are guys, if you watch, I'm constantly as a coach, I'm watching body language. I'm watching how they're reacting. And when your offense is helping your defense and when you're scoring and you just have more pep to defensively to sprint back and get engaged, know your positionings, you're not cross-matched, you're not in situations where, one guy doesn't sprint back. No, the ball goes in again. And then they're picking up early. And all of a sudden, Hadley has to bring the ball up, or it's a situation where they're denying Conwell. We saw in the second half. So, or they're making him make a second cut. And all of a sudden, what does that do? It gives another 1.3 seconds for Duke's defense to get back and get set. And when you're scoring, that's what it does. And you just saw the sensitivity of the offense too. Like Louisville again, if and we can get into the defense because that was an issue. But yeah, when you're not scoring, it's very hard as a coach. It's very hard to keep your guys engaged on the defensive end.
Yeah, and I think the defensive side was more concerning, so let's get to that in a second. I want to ask you one more thing on the offensive end, though, because we've hit on this a bunch here Conwell now is so they can focus on Conwell because Brown's not there. McNeely's not getting the same looks because Brown's not there. Just from the standpoint of it gets something that gets talked about a lot in basketball, but I want your thoughts on how big of a difference this makes, because when Mikel Brown's there, Conwell's probably second on the scouting report. McNeely's probably third. Wooley's fifth or sixth. Frew's like fourth or fifth. You take Brown out of it, everyone moves up a spot. And while that might not seem like such a big deal to go from being the second biggest threat to the biggest threat, we see that makes your life a lot more difficult, especially and Conwell's had some really good moments with Brown out. And Wooley's had some really good moments with Brown out. But collectively, to do that for a long period of time, that's draining. That's difficult. Why is that so much harder when the defense makes you your main target, or even on McNeely, your second main target, instead of being the third, fourth, fifth most important thing that they're worrying about?
Well, yeah, and that's it. There's always going to be, you see a player go down in any sport you can name, and for a game or two, yeah, you could survive and you can cover those type of things up and you could do some things differently, but that's a small sample size. When you eliminate really ball screens, because that's what you've eliminated. Now, in the first half, we had one drag where Conwell hits a three, but that was negated in the second half. But when you have someone like Mikel Brown, who can just not only navigate ball screens, he can split them, he can attack, but he's such a great passer. And he'll hit the roller on a short, he's been great with Frew on pocket passes or rolls, or he'll hit the lift, or he'll see a skip. And also, how many times this year has Mikel Brown, just as soon as he gets a rebound or outlet, he's looking up the floor, he advances the ball. That gets them into an early offense. You didn't see that last night because Louisville's going to take one or two extra dribbles. So that changes the whole dynamic of how quickly you can get into your zooms and your early offense. And all of a sudden, that 1.2 seconds of not advancing the ball up, one or two more defenders are back. And now you have to run more actions. And now there's more, it's clogged, or there's more congestion, and you don't have a middle drive. And all those things happen when you take out a guard of Mikel's caliber. Because again, look, we saw that he had a disposition against Indiana, even on that first play, and he hits Hadley and so on. Just, you could see if they need a basket, they can get him going downhill. We saw that. We saw that against Arkansas. We saw that against Cincinnati. Look, he can, when need be, you can just forget some of the actions and just what we used to call just, hey, power. When I worked for Coach Pitino, put the ball in Russ Smith's hands, give him a high flat ball screen, and just go do your thing. And with Mikel Brown, you trust his decision making. He can get into a ball screen, and all of a sudden he can get downhill. He can find guys because he can draw guys in. You want him to stop getting to the rim, so there's a kick out, there's a dump down. And there's not really a lot of those guys who can make the plays he can. And look, it is what it is. I mean, look, you're going to have Conwell's a heck of a player. Wooley's a heck of a player. Rogers, in his role, is a heck of a player. And McNeely, he plays hard defensively. He's in the right spots. But these aren't guys who are going to create their own shots consistently. And Conwell has one gear. He's hitting those threes or he's getting downhill, but he's just not as shifty or change of pace like you have with Mikel Brown.
Yeah, and Conwell can create shots for himself. Mm-hmm. And he can occasionally create shots for other dudes, but he's not going to be, as you've noted, the dude that's going to be getting everyone else involved all the time. That's not a knock on Conwell. That's just not what his role is.
Yeah. And the team, the players love him, the coaches love him. He's a scorer. He's one of those guys, and we've seen that with tons of pro guys, right? Those are the guys get the ball and they're hunting, and that's okay. And it gives them offensive rebound opportunities. But then you could put the ball in Mikel's, and it kind of passing takes the tension out of the game. And so when you have a team, the ball and just watching the possessions for Louisville, they had 12 possessions where there was, 9 dribbles or more. And you really don't want to have possessions like that, especially when you're just trying to move against a Duke team that's long, athletic, and then just engage, especially like they were in the second half.
Yeah, that's not what Pat Kelsey wants to do either.
No, it isn't.
That's not.
But when the team's up pressuring you, and then you have to dribble, and you don't have someone that's really just going to be able to break you down. And we even saw that with Woolley. He got the basket late, but he's backing guys down. We see it with Javon Hadley. He's backing guys down with the dribble. I mean, that'll work, and you'll get that. But again, that doesn't give you the offensive rebounding opportunities. And again, that's just a one shot and done, and you just hope it goes in, rather than having a guard that can break you down, get a blow by, draw a second defender, and make the right play.
I want to talk about the defense. The last thing I'll mention on the offense is they're going to keep shooting threes, guys. I mean, that's how they're going to play. I mean, when they go in, Louisville hit 8 of the first 12. It's great. Duke ratchets up the pressure. You got to be better than 4 for 26 the rest of the game, which is what Louisville was. But don't expect him. Mikel Brown will add that extra dimension of, like we've talked about, he can get downhill, he can use the ball screen, he can get paint touches where you're going to get a lot better looks. But Louisville's not just going to suddenly stop shooting threes, guys. Like, that's how he wants to play. And for anyone,
they had 14 of the first half. 14 of the threes in the first half were uncontested.
Yeah,
14 uncontested, and that was not the case in the second half. And I said this from the summer. I've said it on this podcast. I've been on the radio on ESPN. I said this team was going to shoot 30 to 40 threes a game. This is what they're going to do. So nothing was going to change there, and we kind of knew that. You don't want them going 12 for 38.
No.
But and having made 10 in the first half, right? Yeah. And so
they were 8 for 12 at the 8-minute mark of the first half, and they were 4 for 26 the rest of the way.
Right. And 10 of those were uncontested of the first 12. But the point is, they're going to keep shooting. They weren't rhythmic in the second half. And these are kind of like, all right, we're going to settle for a 3 instead of, hey, we're going to make the extra pass. We're going to move it. We're going to create an open look. And those just weren't coming in the second half because, look, Duke decided, hey, we're just not going to allow that. We're going to guard the perimeter. We're not going to allow blow-bys. And we're going to just pressure you, take away Conwell, and someone else is going to have to beat us.
Yep. I do think, not that Mikel Brown magically fixes everything, they're automatically going to be a top 5 team in the country once he comes back. That they still have stuff to work out. But a lot of the stuff offensively goes back to 2 things. The adjustments Duke made and the fact Louisville didn't have their best player. I mean, it's really pretty clear, which the first adjustment partially is way more effective because of the second thing. Mm-hmm. What worries me a lot more about Louisville, as you know, they want to be, I know you've said it before, it's can you be a Sweet 16 team at that point? You got a shot to get to a Final Four. Anyone who can win those first two games, whatever happens after that happens. I agree with you, but for Louisville fans that have this expectation of Final Four for aspirations and being, a top 1, 2, 3 seed in the NCAA tournament, Louisville has to be much better on the defensive end than what they've been the last couple games. And yes, Cameron Boozer is an absolute stud who's probably going to win the Wooden Award and be a top 2, 3 pick in the NBA draft in May. He goes for 27. Whatever. How many guys like Cam Boozer are you going to play throughout the year? The bigger worry for me is looking at the last two games, Coach, is going back to the Stanford game. Stanford scores, 80 points? And they only had 6 assists. Credit to Ethan Moore, Louisville Sports Live, having this stat in the postgame show 939 The Ville yesterday. Stanford scores 80 points, only has 6 assists. Duke, on Tuesday night, scores 84, shoots 71% in the second half, close to 1.5 points per possession in the second half. They only had 9 assists. It's not crazy what these teams are doing. It's given the ball to, in Duke's case, Caleb Foster or Isaiah Evans, or in Stanford's case, Ibuka Okori, who is a really good player. These are, good players, but we're not going to be confusing these dudes. Like, if Duke has a weakness, it's consistent guard play. Like, that's the question mark for Duke. And Duke's guards absolutely shredded Louisville the second half. Caleb Foster could get to the rim whenever he wanted to. Okori could get to the rim whenever he wanted to. And that led to easy buckets, points in the paint, and a lot of fouls. Stanford in the game on Friday night took 31 free throws. Duke took 28 free throws. That's putting your opponents on the line just way too much, man. And it all stems from Louisville's guards, Mikel Brown included, when he comes back. You have to stay in front of the ball. Louisville wants to pressure. They want to pick up high and all that stuff. But that only works if you can keep in front of dudes, because Fru's a really good player, but he's not exactly Gorky Zhang back there when it comes to blocking shots. Louisville doesn't have a lot of rim protection. They're not huge up front. So it's paramount that you can stay in front of the ball as a guard, and Louisville has really, really struggled the last 2 games. And that, to me, is really the most disappointing thing we've seen the last few weeks from them.
And just as I'm watching, and Caleb Foster, just at the top of the key, it just seemed like one of the things you have to do, no matter what, you have to dictate and dominate what a player is going to do. Now, it's false hustle if you're just crowding a guy and you're just all over him when he's going to blow by him. And look, Louisville gave up 17 blow-bys. And you talk about Caleb Foster, how you're going to guard him. He was 0 for 2 from the three-point line. And stunting at the ball and jabbing and just being in a defensive position where you're saying, okay, we're going to catch your move. I'm going to play. There's different techniques that we teach. And one is, again, if you feel you're the better athlete, it's half an arm's distance from a guy. If this guy is, he's a guy who loves to put his head down, what Caleb Foster was doing, and just, bullying a guy and straight line driving to the rim, then it's full arm's distance. Our technique is for him is our right foot's just a little higher than his left. Our left foot's inside of him. And no matter what, we're going to catch his move. We're going to make him either spin or turn, and there could be a help defender. But he's going to have to shoot a tough 2 or shoot a contested 3. We're not letting him get to that spot. We're beating him to the spot. And it's simple from that standpoint. And whatever it was just where Louisville was almost too aggressive, just playing him. That's what guards want. Really good guards want to feel you, because they could put you on their hip, and they can direct you where you're going. And the term is, we like to use, put you in jail. And basically they're going to get you downhill. And he's so strong. He's 6'4". And you mentioned it. You don't have Gorgie back there. You don't have someone who's just going to erase that mistake. Okay, you know what? He's going to get there, but we're funneling him to a big who's going to change that and wall up. Where between Khalifa and with Kaysen really not as healthy as he needs to be, and Fru is just not that guy. He's big and strong, and I think he's got a ways to go as far as on the defensive end to be that presence. He can be. He's just not there yet. So as you said, the guards have to understand that it's a disposition. Not tonight. No one is getting a paint touch. We are not allowing him. Everything breaks down when you get beaten off the bounce. When you get a blow by, it's the coaches start screaming at the other players because of late rotation and this guy didn't X out. But basically, it comes down to you got to have the disposition that I am not getting beat, and how they were guarding Caleb Foster from that standpoint. It was concerning because that's not something you want to do. Make him shoot a tough three. Make him shoot a contested mid-range shot. But we're not letting him get downhill and getting layup after layup.
Right. And you look at where in games where Louisville's had success this year, you think of like the Kentucky and Indiana games. Kentucky, yes, Jalen Lowe can do that some. Otega Owe can do that some, but they're not a team that's really going to break you down off the dribble a bunch. They don't have a bunch of guys to do that. Indiana, sure as hell, isn't going to do that with their roster. And those are games where Louisville's had success, where they're playing teams that aren't really built to do that, which is one of the more concerning things about Duke. Because yes, Caleb Foster is 6'4", incredibly athletic, but that's not really how Duke plays. I mean, some of their best offense has been using Cam Boozer in the pick and roll. That was again,
they've been using him in the pick and roll. They've been using him in the mid post. They've been using him off of setting those ball screens for him where he can just rub off them off different actions, even off some horns. But yeah, they're just different ways. Throw the ball to him and just split off him and let him just spin and make his moves and ball screens as well. But look, this is identified that, okay, so Foster was just getting downhill.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Evans, and he's getting good looks, and they're just, again, they're just getting straight line drives to the basket. I mean,
yeah. I mean, it's a credit.
It's simple. Like, you don't have to overcoach, and it's kind of you don't have to come up with all kinds of plays and all kinds of just be intricate. Hey, it's a situation where our guy can beat your guy.
It's a credit to John Shire for recognizing that, because you can go back on the tape. You can see the Stanford game. You can see the Arkansas game for sure, where this has been a struggle for Louisville. It's kind of been swelling under the radar, and now it's kind of exploded here in the last week or so. Caleb Foster hadn't scored more than 15 points in a game all year, and he scored 16 in the second half.
Right. Yeah, and
that's all you need to know.
and it was probably 4 or 5 straight possessions where it's okay. We're spacing the floor. And that was the other thing, too, where Louisville just wasn't as engaged, where they're shrinking gaps. And they're a team that, again, they like to shrink gaps. And whether you we've ad nauseum calling the pack line or however you want to call it, but they're just not going to allow drives. It's not like we're hugging our guy. Our guy's not. We're concerned. We're going to help. We're going to come off. We're going to do all those type of things. We're going to shrink gaps, and that just wasn't there. And it was just too many of those straight line drives. And really, Boozer, again, some of his effectiveness, he hits a three, he gets fouled. And that's the other thing, too, is that you saw Louisville all of a sudden just fouls that were unnecessary, or in good defensive teams are not reaching and not just being out of position. They were out of position. The fouls occur. They're late. And all of a sudden you're putting Duke in the bonus at the under 12-minute mark, I believe it was.
Yeah, it was with 13:36 left, because I saw this Tuesday night. I circled it. I go, okay, this is a huge play here. It's Duke's inbounding, baseline out of bounds. They kind of do like the eject thing where they just throw it to Boozer up at the top of the key, and Hadley
gambles for it,
doesn't get it, completely takes himself out of the play. Boozer drives in, draws a foul on Frew, who's left basically on an island by himself at that point. That's Frew's 4th foul. That's Louisville's 7th team foul at the half. You're in the bonus. Your best big has to go to the bench. And at that point, it was a 1-point game. Duke was already gaining momentum. It felt like that was a complete nail in the coffin. Duke's going to seize control here.
It's funny because I have that written down right here, and it's one of those notes I had that, it's one of those things where we want stops, not steals. And no matter what, you just can't be. You've got to be 127% sure you're getting that steal. If not, we're just playing position, and that's the easy way out. It looks great. Oh, what great hustle! You went for the steal. No, that breaks you down. That breaks you down. Now all of a sudden, a body comes off a body, and that's where fouls usually occur, especially when you don't have a guy that can rim protect. So, yeah, those type of plays, and you can go through the games. Plays like that, Jack, that's a great example. That's what breaks you down. It's not just, okay, well, you miss these threes and you listen to fans and all that. No, those plays like that you just mentioned are ways that you get beat.
Yeah, it is. And that was a killer. I want to ask you this because we talked about this a few weeks ago, but the Z word was popping up again amongst the masses today and Tuesday night on Twitter, on the radio, all that stuff. People are like, why won't he go to a zone? We talked about this after, I believe, the Tennessee game, where, and I believe, I'm not going to ask you why didn't he go zone, because we've had the conversation. You go back and listen to it. If you don't practice going zone, it's going to be an absolute shit show if you try to go zone. But one of the things we talked about at that point was, okay, you have these 10 days off. Do you think Pat Kelsey is going to take some time and try to install a zone as a backup plan for a game like this? And clearly that for whatever reason that hasn't happened. So I'm not going to sit here and ask you, are they going to play zone? Because until we see otherwise, I don't see why we would expect Pat Kelsey to start suddenly playing zone. But what can Louisville do? Because I don't know if the guards can't stay in front of people, if you can keep trying to pressure the ball and do what Pat Kelsey wants to do on the defensive end, which is their identity, because they want to be aggressive, they want to play fast, they want to force the tempo. But we're seeing it against good guards, and we're seeing it against, to be completely honest, meh guards right now. Get to the rim whenever they want to. There needs to be some sort of adjustment made here, in my opinion.
Yeah, but you mentioned it just now. You just talked about their philosophy on the offensive end. They want to get out and go. They want to get out and run. And you've seen them extend their defense. You've seen them pressure and do certain things. Yes, they're struggling. But if they feel if they go zone, basically the pace of play is not going to be conducive for what they're trying to do. And it's basically going to slow the game down, which takes away from a lot of his philosophy. And at this point in Coach Kelsey's career, he's not going to flip and become a guy that's going to run the wing tee and get away from the run and shoot. And all of a sudden,
is it as simple as is the message just going to be man up? You got to stay in front of your dude.
Look, that's I know sometimes fans hate to hear that and say, okay, well the adjustments are bigger. And look, even with Duke, look, I can tell you this. Peyton Manning just came out and talked about, we don't really have at halftime. I had an orange slice. I went and had a soda, and I went and talked to a couple people, and we went out and played. I will tell you this: when you're in the locker room, yeah, you might change. You know what? We've got to do a better job of how we're guarding this ball screen. We're not going to play off. The adjustments aren't these long. You don't get a packet. Every player is not getting a 15-page packet saying, okay, these are all the adjustments we're doing. So part of it's doing it better. Obviously, we saw Duke do some things differently defensively, but really they just ramped up how they were playing all year.
Right. I don't think they made a huge change. It was Shire probably growing up at halftime.
Exactly. And to this point, and I've always said this, the man-to-man that Louisville plays is in effect a zone, but I talked about them not helping on the drives. The problem, no matter what, if you're not guarding guys in man on the perimeter, well, guess what? In a zone, they're going to absolutely pick you apart even worse on that stuff, because they're going to either ball screen you or get into gaps, and guys aren't sure where to be. So if you're not even guarding them in man, don't expect a zone as the elixir that all of a sudden it's easier for us just to stand around and hope that you miss. So I don't think right now that is the fix. Now, do I think that they can change and play some zone out of timeouts and change their defenses at times? Sure. You have a freshman guard that's coming back with a back injury. You have some struggles with, okay, we don't really have a rim protector, and we have some guys on the perimeter that are getting beat. Can we change some things up? You see them at times, they did this where they're extending their pressure, trapping, trying to speed the game up in different ways, trying to force teams to take quick shots and so on. I don't know that changing a lot of what they're doing philosophically is going to make them better, because it's not all of a sudden, if we switch to a different defense, all of a sudden our problems are solved. Our guards are going to just be better defensively. I think I mentioned earlier, technique, arms distance, half arms distance, where your foots are placed, where guys are off the ball, guys being pushed up. One thing with the bigs, I see them help up a lot instead of stunting and being in two places at once. I see a lot of being late and just helping instead of being where you can play the ball and also play the big and get back to them. And that's something you have to work on. Having said that, can they change their defenses? A little bit, but you're not going to see a fundamental switch to something where all of a sudden for the rest of the year, you're going to see the Jim Boeheim zone and just hoping, because it also negates what they want to do offensively as well.
Yeah, I think it reminds me a little bit of like when Michigan hired Rich Rodriguez and they tried to do which of course this is probably a bad comparison because Rich Rod failed spectacularly in Ann Arbor, and Pat Kelsey's a damn good coach who's done a really good job at Louisville. but there was kind of the sense of we've always done it this way, I formation, smash mouth up the middle. What the hell is the speed option for spreads fluffy
Right.
stuff you're doing with Louisville? I bring that
And
up.
Jack, let me just interrupt.
Yeah,
Like Luke Fickle's having problems because
yeah,
Wisconsin, right? Just pounding a big offensive lineman, a running back, and so on, where he's trying to change offensively what they're doing,
yeah.
what they're not used to. This town, this town loves fast pace of play. They
Yeah.
love, but they just want to see a better defensive effort for sure.
I'll give a better example. Urban Meyer modernizing Ohio State is probably a better example because that worked. Unlike so far Luke Fickle at Wisconsin or Rich Rodriguez at Michigan, but I bring that up because Louisville, after 17 years of Rick Pitino, and yes, Chris Mack and Kenny Payne were there after that, but it didn't really go great, as we know.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, no kidding, right? But you have those 17 years of Rick Pitino where, especially as you know better than anyone, that last decade plus or so, it was all about that mind melding matchup 2-3 zone. That's what made Louisville so damn elite on the defensive end. It was that zone. They see that and how effective that was. And yes, they understand Pat Kelsey's not Rick Pitino. He's going to do things his own way. But the first time something doesn't work is, well, we saw this work for a decade. Why not have some variation of this? We know that can work, and that's just not
Well,
what he's
Jack,
going to do.
yeah, and Jack, think about this. It wasn't just us sitting back in that. We were extending pressure. It
Get
was
the
a
2-2-1
it was a
back
two
into
two
it.
one. It was our black press, our white press, back into that where you had absolute demons in Peyton and Russ, and anybody that came in, any of the other guards that came in and just pressuring the blank out of you. And it wasn't just those guys had a disposition, and then everybody was engaged and so on. And sometimes, look, in the matchup that we had wasn't overly complicated. It was a lot of communication. It was a lot of guys just making sure that they were matched up. But a lot of it started by getting the shot clock reduced because our extended pressure, guys pushed up, guys getting after it, and guys having a disposition defensively. And really, it wasn't something that was as Richard Pitino could go to a clinic right now and he'd tell you, I don't know how to teach this. I don't know really what we just got after it. Coach Pitino would probably tell you the same thing. It's really those guys just got after it defensively, and we put guys in position, and we understood tendencies. But really, it's just about. I know everybody wants, from a schematic standpoint, you got to get guys who just buy in to a defensive, and I feel this group does. Like I don't think this team has an effort issue. I don't think this team has an energy issue. I just think maybe there's some just technical things as far as where their positioning is, how they're playing somebody. And again, this could just be an anomaly, and this could be something where, hey, the next time they play Duke, they understand how hard they have to guard that team.
What work is that? Because I know obviously the 2-2-1, and then you guys would make some full court man in there
Mm-hmm.
also. What was the black press and the white press?
Yeah, so it would be where we're on the ball, and so with the black press that we're having somebody on the ball and that we're really denying, and the white press is kind of like where we want to force it back to the inbounder. And if the inbounder is somebody, then we're denying the guards out and not letting them reverse it. And so we'd force a big to bring the ball up the floor. And obviously, then we'd work on that. We'd work on our bigs. And Coach Pitino was really good to me. Like the stuff I did at Monsignor Pace was very similar. So he let me, it's incredible to think about. Like my first year on staff as an assistant coach, I'm doing all the drills I did at Monsignor Pace High School with our guys. And that was all incorporated into what we were doing from a press standpoint. And he was really, let me do it. And we had Preston Knowles and all those guys who just would get after it and really pressure. And, it was a lot of fun. So really, and my energy, look, I that's the way I always coached. I was always intense, and these guys got after it. And I just think that's the biggest thing. And so there's no secret sauce. There's no, we could get into the technical parts of it, but, and there are some things, the rules that I had and all those type of things. But the most part is, you've got to have that mindset. You're looking at the guy, not tonight. You are not getting by me tonight, no matter what. I'll do my basketball life depends on me not getting beat by you. And that's something we would say every day, and something I would say every day.
Yeah, we could do a whole hour just off of the pressing and the schematics and the tactics from that era. I would love that. We have to bookmark that for the summer because I can have a lot of fun with that. I think I'm not alone there with especially people that grew up watching that, because you say that and it's like, okay, the little connection, your head goes off. It's like, Okay, so that's what that was. When you're forcing the power forward to bring the ball up the court, you're denying everything else. Like, okay, everything clicks now. It makes a
Mhm.
little more sense. So I love
And
it. I mean,
it'd all be predicated on who was inbounding for a team, how they were breaking a press, where they were sending guys. So all those things that we would do was we would pre-scout and understand just what they're doing. And if they would change things up, then we understood, hey, we'd switch to what whether we go from the black press to the white press or what have you. We could change all those things up. So yeah.
yep. Or going man to man against Florida in the Elite Eight.
Yeah,
Yep.
and go man to man, which again, it's not all the stuff we did even with our matchup. Look, it's all present. You got to play hard. You got to compete. I don't care if you're in a zone. I don't care if you're in man. I don't care if whatever you're in. You got to compete in whatever defense you're going to play. It doesn't matter. It's not a bailout that okay that we can't do this well, so there's got to be something else that we can do. That's not usually going to work. It's great to do both. Yeah, we're going to play man. We're going to switch to a zone at times. We're going to do this. We're going to change it because this is the personnel that they have. That's one thing. But just say that all of a sudden we can switch our style of defense because we're not doing it well enough, that doesn't work.
Yeah, and that's going to be the big question now for Louisville the next couple of games. Boston College, I don't know how much of a test that will be. That is, I'll put it this way. If Louisville hadn't lost two in a row with Boston College at home on Saturday, sitting there before a quad one game against Virginia, I would
Mm-hmm.
call that a trap game. But with how the last two games have gone for Louisville, I would think Pat Kelsey will have them ready to go for that one.
I don't think
Yeah.
that you have any qualms about the fact that this team will be absolutely, I'm sure, look, I'm not at their practices right now, but I'm sure we just talked about some of the defensive efforts and some of the things they're doing. There's no doubt that this team is locked in on that end and trying to score off their defense and create turnovers and do those type of things for
Is that
sure.
is that the biggest thing you're looking for against Boston College?
That's it. I mean, look, I don't care if they win 45-35. It's a matter of we're getting stops. We're not allowing paint touches. We're limiting our blow-bys. We're getting deflections. Our transition defense is going to be elite. We're going to do all those type of things against Boston College because it doesn't look. Yeah, everybody's going to say it's Boston College. You have to have a carryover. You have to feel good about those things that you're doing because you do understand it changes now. You understand, hey, Duke's personnel, you get it. You've got matched up with them. You understand their speed, their length, what they like to do. All right, let's see what happens the second time they play. I really want to see a Louisville defensive effort in that game be a lot different than what we saw last night.
Yeah, and the good news for Louisville is, yes, it's going to be a Cameron Indoor Stadium near the end of the month. You're going to get that chance on January
Yeah,
26th,
that's
hopefully
great.
with a healthy Mikel Brown too.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, which good job of the ACC to make sure that game gets played twice this year. Very, very
Yes.
well done on that front. Where was I going to go? I had
No, no, Jack.
that bad radio on my end. Yeah.
No, Jack. We've covered quite a bit of info tonight. So wherever you want to go
Yeah.
with it, if you want to talk black and white cookies for the last minute, I don't care.
Yeah.
Whatever.
But anyways,
I had some last night. So
ooh, where from?
from Publix. Publix doesn't
Nice.
do a
Yeah.
bad job. I used to get them in Florida. So still trying to figure out the bakery and deli situation here. So we've talked about that ad nauseum. But anyway,
we have. Anyways, this is Floyd Treat's Finest, presented by the Field of 68 Podcast Network, Title Boxing as well. This is really bad on my end. I had somewhere I wanted to go, and I have completely blanked on it, Coach. That
Jack,
is.
I'll tell you this: when you go back and look at, I think we had one of our better pods. We covered.
We have. We have.
Not that we have any bad pods, but I'll tell you what, we covered quite a bit.
Yep.
So I don't know if there's another question you might have had about.
I was. It wasn't about. Oh, I know where I went. Okay. My bad. Because we were talking about this right before we started.
Mm-hmm.
Apologies to anyone listening. That's some of the worst radio I've done here in a minute.
You're beating yourself up for no reason. You do a fantastic job.
So the narrative that's been going along, Pat Kelsey can't win the big game. Louisville can't win big boy basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, UofL does have the win over Kentucky, whereas Kentucky is. That game's in commercial now. Naturally, I have the Kentucky and the Indiana games on in the background
I've been peeking here and there.
I might check that score real quick, but as Kentucky doesn't have exactly a gaudy record this year, that's still a team that the metrics really, really like. That's still a quad one win. Kentucky's up 4 early in the second half as we're recording this on Tuesday night or Wednesday night rather. They're a team that's a metrics darling for right or wrong. So that's a win that's going to carry a lot of weight, plus the rivalry aspect of it as well. I'd argue that's a big win, but just what do you think of the narrative that they haven't been able to win the big one yet? Obviously, Virginia would not the same level as a Duke, but would be a big game. You have some chances coming up in the ACC. Is there anything Louisville, in addition to everything we've been talking about, what does Louisville need to do to get over the hump in these types of games?
Look, I really believe it's year 2 for Pat Kelsey. You're too young for this, Jack. But even like when Coach K couldn't win the big one,
Yep, Jay Wright could win the big one.
yeah, you know how many times that has been like thrown around, and when the Steelers win a Super Bowl this year, even though Tomlin has won a Super Bowl, you're like, okay, he still's got the juice. Look, Pat Kelsey is a hell of a coach. He knows what he's doing. He again, people think he's figuring things out. I think he gets it. And right now, it's going to be a situation where this team is going to get some big wins. They'll do some things that, again, you know how sports are. All of a sudden, it's right now the sky is falling, and all they did is they didn't play well in the second half, and there's things that are correctable that they're going to have to get to, but that'll come. That'll come. And I think the test against Virginia, that's a really good team. They've got I watched them play NC State the other day. That's a talented squad. You and I talked about this. The ACC is a lot better, right? And
that's good for Louisville.
Oh, no doubt. Absolutely, it's good for Louisville. So they're going to have all those tests. And then they got Baylor down the road and all those type of things. So there's plenty of opportunities. You go into Cameron Indoor and you come away with a win there. Nobody will ever say another thing about not being able to win a big game, especially when you're on the road. So for me right now, it's just when, not if, as far as with Coach Kelsey and this Louisville basketball team.
Yeah, until they get that monkey off the back, though, you know how it goes around.
I know that's how it goes. But to answer there's no that's the instant gratification of the world, and so look, it's not even year two, it's year 1.5 right now, and so look, just they have the right guy, and just understand that there'll be so many big wins under his belt when it's all said and done.
Yep, it will be, and it's going to be a lot of fun following them along the rest of the way this season in the short term as they look to kind of break through on that standpoint. Mm-hmm. First chance, again, not the same level as a Duke, but a quad one opportunity coming up next week against Virginia is going to be a very vital game that can help build out the resume. People forget, even though Cal's not a great team right now, that's a quad one win as well, pretty safely a quad one win. Mm-hmm. So that will be helpful to come March. That's all we got for today for Coach Mark Lieberman.